Hi. So I've just been reviewing a debate for the past hour and 15 minutes. And apparently my fucking stream crashed and I had no clue. Which has never happened in the history of the time that I've been streaming. That the stream crashed, but my computer was still running a video. Because of the nature of the way that I'm reviewing the debates, I'm not looking at the chat. So I'm literally for a fucking hour and 15 minutes going through this debate. And then finally I get a text message from my editor that's like, did your stream crash? And I'm like, what do you mean? So I just spent the past hour and 15 minutes to myself reviewing a debate. So I don't know if I'm going to re-review it or not now. It was actually very good, and I thought Coleman did a fantastic job. Yeah, I was still reviewing it for like an hour and 15 minutes. I didn't have my Discord open. I was trying to just tap because I don't want to get distracted by the audience. So I just had the stream of the debate up and was just talking. What a. But I don't know if it's a problem with my computer, or if it was a problem with StreamYard. What a mess. So I have no way of knowing for the first time in forever, I don't know how to read super chats. If anyone gave any, I don't know. What a shit show. What an absolute mess. Yeah, I reviewed it for like an hour and 10 minutes, is what I was up to. Well, my editor does have my phone number. I wasn't looking at my phone. It sucks. I'm still waiting on the new computer. It's supposed to be here next week. I don't know if it was the computer issue or not, though, because the computer didn't crash. YouTube was still running. It was StreamYard that crashed, and I don't know why. I was talking about an hour and 15 minutes. I looked down and saw my editor text me, and so I look. The whole point is, like, I asked Sobek's like, you should leave your chat up and don't get distracted. To see the chat up would mean that I'm reading the chat. So even if I'm not responding to the chat, I'm reading the chat, which the point is that I'm not supposed to be reading the chat. I'm supposed to be listening to the debaters. If I'm judging two people debating, I'm not reading the chat because then my focus isn't on the debaters. No, it didn't record because the record would have been through StreamYard, which crashed. I'm not trying to look at my phone. If you're watching some dude review a debate and he's like, that's not good. So I wasn't looking at my phone. I just happened to glance to the side. That fucking sucks, though. That sucks a lot. I've literally never had that happen, that StreamYard crashed like that. So I didn't think to have a backup to know if it crashed because it's never crashed. Fuck! I thought it was going well, too. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Re-review the debate like I didn't just watch it? And pretend like, oh, interesting. No, it's... Come on, Joseph. Thanks, man. Just summarize it. Coleman did really good. Dave didn't do so hot. There, that's the summary. Seems to be a skill of streamers. Well, maybe Nick has a better audience than fuckfaces like you, right? I can't help it. I'm stuck with fuckheads like you that are of poor caliber audience, Xphobic. Seems to be a skill of the chatters. Everyone else is good in the chat except you, fuckface. How's that a skill? You're always so passive aggressive. What a fucking douchebag you are. Well, you let the liberals spurg and the Jews are controlling it. Why can't you be more like Nick? He has skills that you don't have. Dude, you got jack fucking shit, dude. You called in and got your fucking ass wrecked. You're fucking pathetic. You don't bring anything to the conversation ever except to get mocked by me, which I guess in itself is a skill to be so incredibly uninteresting, unlikable, and repeat the same arguments to get blown the fuck out over and over again. In many ways, a skill on your part, I guess, but I'm just talking, right? That's a skill. Hey, Rob, you should have understood that there's a potential that StreamYard should crash. And so you should have been able to see my chats and not been distracted while reading my chats while you're reviewing the debate. So it's your fault. I'm just saying it sounds like a skill issue on your part. I'm just saying. Okay, dude. Go watch Nick. Leave me the fuck alone. Now you're going to cry and be like, oh, Rob announced he was going to the bathroom at one point. That upset me. Like last time? My God, your fucking self-importance. Does it know no bounds? Should I also, like when I go on vacation, make sure that I have a chat box with you up in case I'm missing anything while I'm on vacation as well? Fucking douchebag. It's always one passive-aggressive bullshit or another with this fucking guy. Anyways, I didn't think to have the chat up because I like to give my full attentive focus to the debate I'm watching when I'm watching it. I assume there are other people that could multitask in different ways than me. I apologize that I don't have the exact same skills as every other debater out there or every other streamer out there. This literally would have only been an issue out of the thousands, well, probably close to 1,000 times I've live streamed. One time, and that was today. That's the only time it would have ever been an issue. I apologize that I didn't have a contingency plan up to make sure I could see Xphobic's post while I was live streaming, to glance over and make sure Xphobic's still posting so I can make sure that my stream was still running, which has never been an issue before. I want you to be good, but I guess I'm the bad guy. Yeah, okay, dude. Anyways, for everyone who's not a fucking asshole. By the way, Xphobic, why don't you start your own channel, dude? You're fucking crushing it. You're so awesome. You know exactly what to do to be an amazing streamer. Do it. I don't get it. I mean, I am so thankful that you spend all of your time giving me this amazing advice. But just utilize it. Why not? Fuck, you'd be raking in the dough, man. You know how many people be watching you? You know exactly what to do, man. Fire it up. Why not? It's super simple. All you gotta do is do what Nick does. Nick's perfect. You know the skills that are necessary. Have at her, dude. Why not? You should always have the chat, even if you're not interacting. Get used to talking without getting distracted by it. Nick does monologues with the chat up. Every once in a while, they let him know when something's wrong in the stream. Seems to be a skill of streamers. I don't have the skill of streamers. That's the problem. I can only imagine, right? Can you imagine what it's like to like fucking like be this guy's wife or fucking child or something? Hey, Dad, I got an A on my report card. Nick Fuentes would have got an A plus. Well, you got an A. Nick Fuentes would have got an A plus. Hey, husband, I was going to the store to get some bread and milk. Nick Fuentes would have already had bread and milk. I don't know if you know about Nick Fuentes. That's a skill he has. He would have made sure we weren't running out of bread and milk. I don't know if you knew that. You know, it must be a skill that Nick has that you don't have. That's what Nick Fuentes does, you know? What kind of fucking loser? Do you think Nick would like you? Some perpetual fucking ass kisser like you? You think he thinks it's cool that he'd have audience members that's going into other streamers like, I don't know if you knew how Nick Fuentes did things. He has this skill. Hey, you should see what Nick does. He has a skill. Nick would be like, you little bitch. Why don't you do your own shit instead of trying to suck off my teeth, you fucking loser? What kind of fucking loser just worships at the altar of a person so much that they got to constantly remind people, hey, I'm on this other stream. Do you guys know what Nick's up to tonight? I don't know if you knew how great Nick is. Nick would do things differently. I'm just saying. I don't know if you know about Nick Fuentes and how he does things. He seems to have better skills. We get it, man. You like Nick Fuentes. Nick's the greatest streamer ever. Go watch him. Let me the fuck alone. You're not coming across as a guy that just wants to see you do good. You're coming across as a perpetual dick sucker that fucking wants to tell people that they should stream in the same ways that your fucking guy whose dick you're sucking wants. And by the way, that dude's telling you, please stop sucking my dick. That's what you sound like. No, I'm just trying to give good advice. That's all. Nick Fuentes wouldn't wear a shirt that color. He'd make sure that his shirt matched his hat. I don't know if you've seen the background that Nick Fuentes has. He must have a better skill of having a better background. Nick Fuentes doesn't have problems with his computer. He knows how to set up his computer. It must be a skill that some streamers have. I don't know, do you know, Nick Fuentes, his voice inflection when he's reading from the chat, it's so much better than you. Perhaps you should watch Nick Fuentes and get some advice on how to do that. He's a streamer with skills. Zach Gelpy, $10. Hey, Rob, why aren't you more like Rainbow Mexican? Nah, it wasn't that the camera crashed. It was StreamYard itself crashed. Yes, it does make me feel better. Bat Fricker, thanks for the $10. Says Nick Fuentes would read my super chat. Oh, shit. I'm just copying Nick. Yeah, Max, I know, dude. I promise. I'm going to message you here. I promise. Full disclosure on the computer stuff. I sent Avarice money in December to build me a computer. Shit came up. It's been since December. In the past month or two, my computer started to shit the bed. I got in touch with Avarice. Avarice is trying to build the computer very fast. Avarice claims that the computer has been shipped, that it should be here Monday or Tuesday. So my computer problems should be solved Monday or Tuesday. I already paid for the computer in December. So to reach out to someone like you, Max, and say February, March, April, something to that would have been redundant because I already paid for the computer. I've just been waiting to receive the computer. That's all. So it should be here Monday. We should be good to go. Whatever, Xphobic. I don't really give a shit. We're men. I can sit here and call you a little bitch and I don't care. It's not like I'm super mad or anything. I guess I'm probably more frustrated than anything because I just pissed away an hour and a half of fucking content for nothing. I was talking to myself. I have to admit, I found my review of the debate very interesting. But my computer's already obsolete. How would I feel if I didn't have breakfast? Hungry. I didn't have breakfast. Oy vey. Yeah, that is lost media. Take two. Not today, man. Maybe a different day. Oh, motherfucker. And I never stream on Saturdays. I was like, oh, I'll do it. I don't know. I don't know what the backup plan will be. Like I said, I'm not even sure it's a computer issue. It was probably a StreamYard issue. But I don't know. I don't know what my... To those who know more about computers, why does Rob need a new computer more often, for lack of a better term? How do I? What do you think? I don't understand the claim. This computer's probably close to 4 years old. Is that a short amount of time for needing a new computer? Zach Gelpy, thanks for the $10. Says I need a Snickers. What's the average time that a streamer would need a new computer? I think I got this computer. It's like a $1,400 computer. Maybe is what I paid for it. I don't know. I don't know what the average amount of time. It may seem like I've needed a more computer more often because I needed a new computer in December. Yeah. I think this is probably around 3 years old. So I needed a new computer in December. I paid for a new computer in December, and we're at June, and I'm still waiting to receive that computer. So maybe you've heard me in the past 6 months say, need a new computer, need a new computer, need a new computer. But I've never received a new computer from since December. So I don't know. But if it's like Rob needs a new computer every 3 years, or it's been 3 years since Rob got his last computer, I don't know if that's more or less time than average. Yeah, I think it was 3 years. Maybe it was less than 3 years. I don't know. I could quickly look, maybe. Let's see. I think this computer was built sometime in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like I'm trying to look at my records here. Uh, yeah, it looks like I built it around February of 2023. So that's about 3 years. That's pretty short, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. And like I don't know how much of my problem's just like stupidity on my part, or I don't know. But I have pictures of me building it on February 23rd, 2023. Huh. Am I ready for the Hunter Biden presidential run? Heck yeah. But I think this computer I built, I was trying to spend like $1,100 or 1,200. I think is what I ended up spending. That I was making far less money to put into the channel then. So I wanted to upgrade to something that's more robust that will hopefully last me 4 or 5 years. I don't know. Anyways, I'm probably gonna wrap up. I apologize for the fucking shit show that was today's stream. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck happened. It's a mess. So sorry to all of that shit. I'll be back tomorrow night around 10, I think. If you want to watch something, go watch the video my editor put up today of just the hour section of my debate with Pisco. If you didn't watch it, the whole fucking video, that's a good hour and 11 minutes to watch that gives you Just a fantastic idea of exactly how that debate went and just how bad he was getting beaten the whole time. So, and that's right here if you want to watch it. I'll put the link, but it's on my YouTube channel. If I could fucking what's going on. Oh. Zach Kelpie says, I guess if anyone has any questions they want me to answer before I go. $10. What's my take on Candace Owens going to Russia? I have no idea. I heard she was going. That's all I know. Is she allegedly talking to the Russian government? Is that the allegation? She's there. Um, I I don't know. My guess is it seems to me that her job is to be a dissident on the right, right? Against Trump. She's going to come against Trump and Trump supporting people from the right. So anything that she's trying to do, I would view through that lens. So is she trying to go to Russia to find information that she'll say is critical of Trump and Trump supporting people in the Trump administration, that somehow they're fucking about, they're still giving money to Ukraine, it's still a big anti-Russian, pro-Jewish conspiracy, would be my guess. But I don't know what even the allegation is. Yeah, Proton VPN sponsor me now. Yeah. A Bandit says no open links from Coach Mim on a new computer. Coach Mim got me. John Waite, $20 says, cheers, Rob. Grilling kebabs in the backyard. That sounds amazing. Listening to you and watching the kids running in the sprinkler. Thankfully, on this 82nd anniversary of D-Day. Have a good weekend, pal. Yeah, that's amazing. I forgot all about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you, John. And she's talking to government people. Yeah, I'd assume that's what it is, to push the bullshit. Just anti-America bullshit would be my guess. But I guess we'll just do it real quick before I leave. I got 25 minutes. I'm not going to redo the fucking review. If you have any questions for me, any comments on how Nick Fuentes is better than me, X-phobic, get them in now. Just put them in the form of super chat. You can say whatever the fuck you want. Nick Fuentes would answer questions better than you're doing, Rob. Nick Fuentes would be more informed on exactly who Candace Owens is talking about. Yeah, I was primarily on Twitch when I built that computer, yeah. Nick Fuentes would have had his new computer months ago. I know. Who do I think won that debate between Coleman Hughes and Dave Smith? Coleman Hughes, it wasn't that close. Dave wasn't particularly horrible or anything, but the thrust of what I was saying, at least in the position that the section that I was watching, would be Coleman did a masterful job of debate preparation. So it's evident to me that Coleman had heard Dave Smith's arguments before and then intentionally took Dave. It's like a good prosecutor will only ask witnesses questions that they already know the answers to. That's what Coleman was doing the whole time. He's like, okay, you say Israel was steered us into Iraq. They're the reason we went to the Iraq War. Yes. Why? And he knows Dave Smith's going to say Project for a New American Century. So he's like, okay, let's see what PNAC was saying. Oh, they're all saying WMDs. They're not mentioning Israel. And Dave's like, yeah, but what about the clean break memo? Coleman's like, glad you mentioned that. Here's what the clean break memo says. And Dave Smith's like, yeah, okay, but what about Wesley Clark? Glad you mentioned that. Here's what Wesley Clark, the problems with that situation. So it gets more detailed than that. But yeah, that's I didn't think it was particularly close. Bandit, $2 says Nick Fuentes has the best computers, Trump. They're the best. Yeah. I just agree with Coleman's cause more. He didn't win. I disagree with you. I think you just agree with Dave's cause more. He didn't win. There, now where are we? In general, I probably agree with Dave's position more than Coleman's. Actually, I was against the Iraq War. Coleman maybe wasn't. I was against going into Iran. Coleman isn't. So I don't understand. I guess if the fucking debate wouldn't have crashed out, maybe I'll review it again and let you all see. But what would happen would be Dave's the affirmative, so it's incumbent on him to prove his position. His thesis is Israel forced the United States to go to war in Iraq. They were controlling the United States. Okay, Dave, what's your argument as to how? He says, this is the argument that Dave makes. He's like, because there were people that were neocons that did the war. Okay, I agree. And they were writing that they were doing it for Israel in places like Project for a New America Century. Coleman says, okay, very first writing of this was John Bolton. The entire thing is about weapons of mass destruction. Doesn't mention Israel. The big post that all the people signed off to from Project for a New American Century, whole thing's about WMDs. It mentions Israel once in the same sentence with like Jordan, United Arab Emirates, etc., by saying, also it'll be good for the allies in the region. One sentence. Now, Dave doesn't say, here's other writings. He doesn't. He just says, okay, but what about the clean break memo? Okay. So Dave says, first he said the writings from the Project for a New American Century, those writings seem to suggest that there was a reason outside the scope of Israel that was the central focus of wanting to go into Iraq. That was WMDs. So he goes, yeah, but the clean break memo. Coleman says, fine, let's look at the clean break memo. The clean break memo says multiple things. First, it says we should dispose Saddam. Okay, fine. Now, where does that say that just because two countries want the same thing, that means Israel's controlling the United States? I fail to see how the clean break memo would say that. Secondly, it says this was written to Israel about what Israel's position should be. Thirdly, it says once Saddam's deposed, to replace the Saddam regime with a monarchy of a particular denomination, which will then go on to help Israel with their clean break from Palestine plan to keep all the land. And yet that part of the plan's never achieved or even attempted. So why am I to believe that this memo that was written to Israel, because it says, hey, we should take out Saddam, must prove that the United States took out Saddam because Israel forced them to? But Israel also wanted to force them to replace it with a monarchy, but the United States didn't. Why? Dave Smith's response is, but what about Wesley Clark and the memo to say to take out 7 countries? Okay, first, Wesley Clark admits he never saw the memo. Second, this memo was writings from Donald Rumsfeld. And then Coleman says, here's contemporaneous reporting that shows that Rumsfeld would write 20 to 60 memos a day to Condoleezza Rice. And basically Condoleezza Rice would throw them in the fucking garbage can. They estimate 60,000 memos in the W. Bush term probably came from Donald Rumsfeld. 60,000. So why are we to believe that this one memo that David Clark never saw somehow proves that we went to Iraq because Israel ordered us, or that we went to Libya because Israel ordered? How are we supposed to believe that? Where's the proof? And Dave Smith's like, well, the fact that Wesley Clark said something publicly must believes that he thinks there's some truth to it. Yeah, maybe, but what does that prove anything? And we didn't overthrow all of those 7 countries. We overthrew 4 and a bunch of other countries that weren't on the list. So it sounds like what if a bunch of people wrote a memo to China in 1999 and was like, here's why you should overthrow Saddam Hussein. Saddam is putting a stranglehold on Iran and their ability to send oil to you, China. So you should want Saddam overthrown and then replaced with this particular denomination, which is pro-China. And then years later, the United States goes to war in Iraq and deposes Saddam and doesn't replace it with the pro-Chinese monarch. And then everybody goes, see, China ordered the United States to attack Iraq. How do you know? Well, this memo says that China wanted Iraq overthrown. Okay, couldn't they have had their own reasons? That proves it. Okay, but then why didn't the United States do all the other things there that China wanted? Well, just because. See? Now, when we're talking about the context, now, this person, by the way, said, me saying that Coleman Hughes won the debate was just because I agree with Coleman's position. Now, I go step by step with what's argued in the debate, and instead of acknowledging or disagreeing with that, he just says, everything we do is because of Israel, thus proving that the reason he thinks Coleman lost the debate was actually what he accused me of. He has a pre-confirmed position on this, and therefore that means Dave Smith won because Dave Smith agrees with his predetermined condition. I could go line by line through the debate, and this guy that's saying, that's just because you agree with Coleman Hughes, that's why you're saying all this stuff. Well, instead of refuting any of it, just say, but I agree with Dave Smith, so therefore he's right. Exactly what he's accusing me of. Zach Kelby, $10 says, it's okay, Rob. Well, another 7K coming for you in the mail. Send it soon. My computer's blowing up. Yeah, true. Right. Now, I'm not saying maybe someone more competent than Coleman could be like, you're wrong. And here's why. Entirely possible. That could be, I'm just looking at it through I know the debate review crashed, so you couldn't see it. One of the things I admit, I think I read the clean break memo like 11 years ago, but I don't remember what it says. And the Wesley Clark stuff I've seen parts of. It could be that someone more competent than Dave could be like, no, Coleman, here's why you're wrong. And I would say, regardless of my feelings, if I felt that, I would say, very good point. They're winning the argument. So for me, it's like, I'm trying my best. I have a bias, clearly, but I'm trying my best. By the way, I like Dave Smith a lot. I've moderated a debate for him, but I'm trying my best to say, regardless of my bias, who do I think is doing better and why in these exchanges? For me, the reason that I'll probably re-review that debate at some point, God damn it, I'm so mad that happened. It shows two things that I think are very important. The importance of preparation and understanding your opponent's argument and how that could make or break a debate. All things equal, if one person knows the exact arguments the opponent's going to make and the other doesn't, the person that prepared is probably going to do better. So, like, for example, if I'd never heard of the clean break memo or Wesley Clark, and someone says, what about these things, Rob? I'm going to be like, well, I don't really know what they say. It becomes a more difficult job for me to rebut them in real time. The other thing that it shows, and I think a lesson from that debate, is I don't know what the dono bar's doing here. It's a mess. The importance of focusing on specifics as opposed to generalities. So when someone says, all of these writings say X, all of these people were writing about doing this because of Israel. Show me. Give me a specific. I bow in worship to my idol, Andrew Wilson. Really? I'm a Zionist. I believe in the advancement of Israel, our greatest ally. It's no different than MAGA. So are you bowing in worship to Israel? Care to explain how I bow in worship to Andrew Wilson? By all means, happy to hear you out. I don't understand. I think both the pro-Israel and anti-Israel people could learn this little bit of lesson. Like, why so many people on both sides of the aisle have to be complete and total fuck faces? It just makes perceptually no one want to listen to any other thing you said. Now, I'm literally arguing in the position here that presumably William would agree with. I'm on here saying, I think Coleman won the debate. And this dude's like, yeah, and I'm Zionist and blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, but basically, Rob, you're a fuckface that worships Andrew Wilson. What's the point? What's the point? I disagree, you piece of shit. I think you worship Israel, fuckface. I think you presented more evidence that you worship Israel than I have that I worship Andrew Wilson, fuckhead. Would you like to call in and talk about it, you piece of shit? Would you like that? Are you going to fucking hide like the little coward bitch you are? Is that what you're going to do? I'm a little coward bitch that accuses people of worshiping shit, but I can't defend my claims. Ha ha ha. Got you, didn't I? Ha ha ha. You're right, I am a coward bitch. No? Not going to call in? I'm a Christian. Trust me, bro. Trust me. What if I say you're a Zionist shill? You care more about Israel than Christ. How about that? What if I make that accusation? Prove you're not. But for the rest of you, this guy's obviously a piece of shit. Why would you do that? Why would you listen to someone sitting there basically giving the argument that helps your side, and you're like, oh, and by the way, I'm just going to insult him with something completely fucking nothing to do with anything anyone's talking about. You know what that tells me? William's so fucking stupid, he didn't even understand that I was arguing why his side was winning this debate. That's how fucking stupid he is. He didn't even realize it. He had no clue. He thought that he heard me say something that was against his side, even though I wasn't, was like, well, you worship Andrew Wilson. What did I say? I was like, here's things Dave could have said? Or did you just say, oh, it's a total aberration, not connected to anything. I'm just going to insult Rob just because. Just for the fun of it, right? What a fucking idiot. By the way, I notice he isn't taking the opportunity to call in to explain how I worship Andrew Wilson. Does the Bible also call for you to be a coward? Because you're that. Can you point me to the chapter and verse where it recommends you be a coward? Just curious. Am I EO? I don't know what EO means. Am I Eastern Orthodox? No. What an absolute piece of shit moron. What are you? Whatever I feel like. What's the difference to you, fuckface? What are you? I don't answer questions from you anymore. Shit for brains. You gonna call in or are you gonna get banned, fuckhead? You don't know shit about me and you're saying you worship Andrew Wilson. What did you think I was when you said I worship him? Where does it say in the Bible that you ought be a coward? Can you point that out? Does it say that that's a noble pursuit to be a coward? Zach Gelpy, $10 says, William, I'm a proud Zionist. It's completely okay for Rob and Andrew not being one. They both don't care that much about it, and that's fair. He has a case. He's too stupid to fucking realize. I opened with Hava Nagila, mocking the people that spurg out about Jews all the time. I played this, you fucking idiot, which is clearly mocking the intense anti-Israel people. Jews, 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 Now I'm good. Now I'm speaking the truth. This gets to my point. This guy is so fucking stupid. This guy's so stupid that he thinks that's me insulting Israel. That's how stupid he is. That he can't see that that's clearly me insulting the people that are like, everything's about Israel. That's how stupid this guy is. So everything that he did when he was like, I'm going to defend Zionism, keep in mind, that's how stupid this guy is. That's how fucking dumb he is. This guy heard me reviewing a debate. I was literally talking to someone who dislikes Israel. And that person was saying, you think that Coleman Hughes won the debate because that pre-confirms to your side. And I was like, no, that's not why. Here are the specific things. Literally defending his side of the argument. And this guy was so fucking stupid, that he's like, oh, Rob's against it, so I'm going to insult him. We'll see you, coward. Now, that's why I say, if anyone is an anti-Zionist shill, it's that guy. And if anyone's on the payroll of Israel, it's the people the opposite. Why would you be a person who is heavily invested in the side of the argument, and when people are like, yeah, I agree with you, like, and fuck you too, it's like, but I said I agree with you. Fuck you, bitch. At some point, you have to be like, oh, are you intentional? I think you're actually on the other side, and you're just trying to make this side look that bad. Zach says, we aren't all that way. William makes us look bad. Of course, I know that. That's what I would say, though. I would say that William's more likely to be a groiper than an actual person who believes in Zionism. Pretend to be a Zionist and just be the most insufferable prick so that people disagree with Zionism. That's what it seems like. Just like there's so many of these anti-Israel people that are so fucking insufferable that you come away thinking, I don't know, maybe I should defend Israel. Same thing. I just don't understand it. And maybe I'm a little pissed off because my video cut out on me and I spent an hour and 10 minutes doing absolutely nothing. But anyways, the point is, I guess there is a lesson in this for debate strategy. When someone's on your side, don't attack them for no reason. And it would be different if he's like, but I do have a bone to pick with you, Rob, about something else. But it's like you worship Andrew Wilson. What have I ever done that suggests that? Because Andrew's my friend, so I must worship him? Is that it? I suppose. What? He doesn't have any friends? If you're friends with someone, you must worship them. That's a new one. I admit I'm not the most astute theologian, but I don't recall ever reading that. Oh, look, he came back with a new account. It's totally not him, though. I agree with Andrew on things. I disagree with Andrew on things. I agree with Trump on things. I disagree with Trump on things. I agree with Zach Gelpe on things. Disagree with him on things. Do I worship those people? What is even the point? Other than just a bullshit attack. You don't like Andrew. Cool. And? What's that have to do with me? I just can't get over. You're a Zionist. You're listening to me make arguments as to why the guy that was debating against the anti-Israel guy was wrong. And you're like, yeah, fuck you, Rob. You worship Andrew Wilson. What was the utility of that? That's what I'm saying. It's probably he's a groiper. Anyways, Zach Gelpy, $5 says, to be fair for everyone, William, there's 20 on the other side. I agree. I do agree with that. Turner, thanks so much. $10 says, did Pisco ever answer your criticism that he never established a stopping mechanism for why court packing would lead to deterrence rather than an escalation spiral? No. That's the short answer. I didn't go soft on him after Jargate. To the opposite. I put out a whole video. I still give him shit. The problem with Pisco's concept of deterrence, which is this: deterrence could mean incentivizing the behavior that you want to deter so that that behavior gets out of control so that you could later deter it, could be used about everything. I want to deter people smoking crack, so I'll give them a bunch of free crack and make it legal. That way they'll all smoke so much crack that eventually they'll be like, we want to stop smoking crack. So therefore, by selling you crack, I'm deterring you smoking crack. That's basically Pisco's argument. And he doesn't mean by deterrence what you mean. Even with that portion of it, if you go back and watch, he's like, no, deterrence means something totally different. And then when I point out how absurd that is, he then goes back to sort of an original definition of deterrence and just says, yeah, but short-term incentivizing could lead to long-term deterrence. Then why did you have to make up your own definition of deterrence? And the reason is because he's just throwing shit at the wall. If I get one thing to stick, then I win in his eyes. So he's like, well, deterrence means something completely different. And also it's short-term deterrence. It'll prevent, and also if you don't believe that, it's long-term deterrence. And also if you don't believe that, deterrence means something completely different. And also if you don't believe that, it's ultimately just about my preferences anyways. That's sort of what was going on. My point was I was trying to approach it in two ways. One, if that's his if we're looking at it from deterrence, ask yourself this: are Republicans packing the court now? No. So what is there to deter? Well, they're packing the court in Pisco's utterance of court packing, which means something completely different than what court packing actually means. If we accept that Pisco's definition of court packing is completely different than everyone else's, then yes, they are currently packing the court. But wouldn't you know it, that also means that no, the Democrats never packed the court in that unique definition, because he's defined it to mean just when the Republicans do it as a court packing, because no two situations are direct apples to apples. So it just so happens the exact situation with Merrick Garland is considered court packing. And so therefore, there is court packing going on now, which means we need to deter it. And the only way to deter it is court packing from the Democrats. But if you're able to successfully prove, actually, there is no court packing right now, and your plan makes it more likely that Republicans say, okay, now we're going to pack the court, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that if the Democrats add 4 seats, that as soon as the Republicans get a chance, they're going to be like, we're adding 4 seats. And if ever there's a detente where both sides are like, this is too much, you know what they'll do? They'll go back to the original 9 seats. They'll say this started when Democrats added 4 seats, and then Republicans added 4, and then Democrats added 8, and Republicans added 12, and then Democrats add 20, and Republicans add 40. And now all of a sudden we have 200 people on the Supreme Court. They'll say, we got to go back to the beginning. And you know where they're going to say the beginning is? When the Democrats added 4 seats. So you're creating the problem that you're later then saying to deter. Everybody knows it. Even Avi knew it. He's like, yeah, what does it matter? causing the Republicans to deter. But fine, if that's your definition, fine. Then I say Merrick Garland not getting a confirmation hearing was actually just deterrence because of the bad behavior of Democrats under Bork and Clarence Thomas. So there's nothing wrong with that. What happened with Merrick Garland was just deterrence. And he'll say, but it wasn't deterrence. Now look where it's led. Now Democrats are going to pack the court. Yep, which will inevitably lead to deterrence. See how that works? No. It's only our side that's allowed to do that, he says. Right. Stupid. Vita. How you doing, man? $5 says, can we talk about the irony of Avi shitting on modern day debate mods only to be a horrible mod himself? Just to get off the Jews. Yeah, we can talk about that. I don't want to talk about the Jew stuff anymore either. Avi seems like a nice guy, and I'm willing to accept Avi's explanation of what happened here. Avi's explanation, I'm reading into it, but I don't know if Avi's friends with this guy or Ask Yourself or what, but Ask Yourself apparently is coaching Pisco on like formal debate, like logic, proper forms of syllogisms and all this shit. Phil Bro stuff, philosophy pro shit. And Ask Yourself's either friends with Avi or they're mutual acquaintances. And that's why Pisco wanted Avi as the moderator, because he was going to do the Phil Bro shit, and he knows Avi's a Phil Bro person. And Avi's explanation, and this seems probably true, is this is how Avi does things. It's like instead of a moderator, Avi's like a judge or a coach. Like imagine that Zach Gelpi and Vita are in a debate and I'm the moderator. And the entire time I'm saying, now Vita, what you should have said was this. Actually, that argument falls flat. You could have said this. Zach, actually, I agree with your argument here. It does make sense. So I think Vita's incorrect. And I'm approaching it from more of a point of being a coach. To me, that's not moderating. But I accept that that's how Avi does it. That's basically what he says. This is just how he does things, which is fine. It's just, to me, not standard moderation. And the fact that, I will believe that Avi wasn't in there pre-inclined to be like, I'm going to be on Pisco's side. It was just the style that Pisco was debating in was Avi's preference, and he's going to weigh in on it, is what it seemed. But yeah, I mean, for me, moderation should be neutral, and it's not supposed to weigh in. Or if it does try to weigh in, it's doing so in as neutral of attempt as possible. So if you're going to ask a critical question of one side, you ask a critical question of the other side. And even then, that's asking questions, not making arguments. The moderator should not be saying, this is what makes the argument good, or this is what makes the argument bad. The moderator, in my position, job is to allow the debaters to have a fair attempt to go back and forth at each other and to make sure the audience is having an enjoyable experience. So the moderator is there to more be like, hey, come on, we've been stuck here, let's move it forward, or give him a chance to respond, or we can't hear when both people are talking. That's the role of the moderator, in my opinion. And if instead you're like, I'm going to weigh in my opinions on how the argument structure is going, to me, that's beyond the scope of a moderator. But that's okay. I'm not saying that Avi did it because he dislikes me or he agrees with Pisco's position. But for me, it's not what I expected. And I know that is what Pisco expected, which was part of it. Zach Gelpi, $5. The dono bar's broke. I don't know what's going on with it again. The whole thing, I think it's StreamYard shitting the bed. I don't know what's going on. $5 says, come on, guys, let's get the donuts in to help Rob have a better day. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Thank you, Zach. Clip himself, $20 says, the way that you systemically disassembled Pisco's premises on a molecular level is therapeutic for me. Thou shalt henceforth be known as a nuclear option. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. I really did. If you're going to set something, it takes forever, and that's what's frustrating. But yeah. Thank you, man. Lone Wolf and Cub, $5 says, every president since Clinton has said Iran can't have a nuke. Regardless of Democrat or Republican, there must be intelligence that makes the U.S. say that. Your thoughts? Yes and no. I would say that the parties are more of a uniparty prior to Donald Trump. So am I surprised that they would agree on foreign policy? To me, those decisions are made by like permanent bureaucrats, not Obama to Bush. So just, I don't look at it like, well, if the Obama administration said it and the Bush administration said it, look how different they are. So there must be truth to it. I'm like, nah, I don't think they're all that different. But it's certainly been the case that they've been harping on this for a long time. And it can speak to the fact that, like, look, like, think of it this way. Let's say I think the FBI is corrupt. I do. If the FBI comes out and puts a statement out tomorrow, it's like, look, there's a serial killer on the loose in rural Pennsylvania. That doesn't mean they're lying. There may very well be a serial killer on the loose. So I don't say this must be a lie because they're corrupt. Well, they're corrupt on certain things. The same could be true of Iran. Given the public statements that Iran's made about like death to America and this, that, and the other, I don't find it beyond belief that Iran would attempt to get a nuclear weapon and then use it to do nefarious shit. John Wait, $5 says, imagine taking life advice from a single childless 20-something-year-old that tells you to vote Dem. Pisco. Ugh. Rob, if you read premise one and replace justified with, it would be my preference, you'd have Pisco's real argument. In that case, the debate was completely pointless. Yeah, man, it took me like 10 hours to get. I was sort of shocked because his conclusion was it's justified. And towards the end of the debate, you get to the heart of the matter. Justified, to me, has a notion of fairness and reciprocity. You have a justified case of self-defense because they were about to harm you and you're justified to use physical violence back, right? But to him, he says justified just means should. So if you look at his conclusion, let's see if I have this. This is the conclusion. The Democrats are justified in expanding the United States Supreme Court. Oh, I forgot to add it to the stage. See, the Democrats are justified. That's the key word, justified. Now, that implies to me that there's some sort of measure of what we collectively would assume justified means. Has something to do with fairness or reciprocity, etc. That's what justified means. Pisco's like, no, that just means you could take out the word justified, and a complete synonym for it would be the Democrats should expand the United States Supreme Court. Now, the problem with that is if you say the Democrats should expand the court, neutrality, fairness, reciprocity, all of that's irrelevant. For example, I could say the Republicans should expand the Supreme Court. Why? Well, because I think that the Democrat justices suck. And I'd like to see more Republican justices so we could expedite the removal of millions of illegals and we could get back to Trump's tariff plan and we could, force voter ID and we could get rid of gay marriage. So they should. I think those are all good things. But are they justified in doing it? I don't know. I don't care. I have no idea if it's fair or not. It's irrelevant. It's just good things will happen. I like good things. That's it. It's my preference. Is it valid to say if I think these things are good and I think that expanding the court will lead to those things, then we should do them? No, that's not invalid. You just say, I disagree. My preferences are different. Okay. This is why the whole formal, let's use these syllogisms and shit's irrelevant to me because the idea of an argument being valid means nothing. Whether or not something's valid doesn't mean you should do it. If I say, premise one, all redheads should be punched in the face. Premise two, Zach Gelpy is a redhead. Therefore, conclusion, Zach Gelpy should be punched in the face. That would follow a valid structure if those premises are correct. You say, yeah, but it's not. It's not because I've seen Zach Gelpy. He doesn't have red hair. I'd say, oh, when I say ginger, I just mean people that have hair and a beard. But no one else calls that ginger. Yeah, but ginger schminger. If I said schminger and said that the reason my definition of schminger is just people with hair and a beard, wouldn't you say you have to accept that definition because it's a word I made up? I guess. Okay, same thing with ginger. It's just ginger to me means any color hair with a beard. Isn't that valid? Yeah, I guess it's valid, but no, we shouldn't punch people in the face. The validity of it is nonsensical. But that's ultimately, it's just like, well, I'll just change the meaning of terms to say, I have a predefined, I think something's good, so I want it. So I'll craft a syllogism, say the form is valid, change the words to make the form valid. For example, his definition of court packing isn't one that other people accept. His definition of reciprocity is not one most people would accept. His definition of I forget what other terms that he had, but he defines this shit all in unique ways. Deterrence. Well, yes, I understand the point. The point I'm missing is thinks we should do this have nothing to do with the premises. It's just his preference. That's exactly my opening statement. He has a conclusion. I want this to happen. Democrats good, Republicans bad. Therefore, I want the court pack. He knows that that's not going to be persuasive to people. So he has to make a post hoc justification why it's not just about his preferences. So he appeals to the concept of justice or fairness. So he sets up a syllogism to claim that it's justified. But he redefines all the words in a way that it's not words that other people would accept, including the word justify just meaning should. So the premises are irrelevant to the real reason, which is I just personally feel this happened because it fits into my subjective principles. That's it. And so he tries to set it up in the form of a syllogism to make it appear that it is a valid argument in the form of a formal, syllogistic structure. Because if it's valid, then there must be truth to it. But that's not the case whatsoever. But he knows that enough people will think if something is valid, then that means there's truth to it, which isn't necessarily the case. So, anyways, I'm not so sure that you're correct about that. Perhaps I'm inverting the definitions of valid and sound. Okay, what is a valid argument versus what is a sound argument? To me, valid means that it follows a logical formal, that it follows the formal structure. That A follows to B, follows to C, follows, or if A and B and C and D, then E. That's valid if it fits into that. But it could be unsound in that, yeah, but we still wouldn't do that. Sound equals that it's a valid argument and the premises are true. Right. So when I say that it's valid, what I'm saying is he's saying if the premises are true, does this argument structure follow? Yes. Okay, it's valid. Therefore, if it's valid, there must be truth to it. Soundness means that it's valid plus all of the premises are true. So he's making the argument, as long as it's valid, there must be some truth to it. And people go, Rob admitted it's a valid argument. But it doesn't mean that it's sound. No, you disagree. Okay. Well, I guess I don't give a shit. I guess that's my real answer. Even the people that are claiming to understand philosophy and the formal of it are disagreeing now on what that means. I guess I just don't give a shit, and this is why I say it's a total fucking waste of time. Vita, $5 says, When Avi tried to fix Pisco's shitty syllogism in real time after you proved it to be invalid was the nail in the coffin for how horrible the Mahdi was. Well, for me, it's funny because his whole argument was, if the premises are true, the conclusion follows. If it's sound, the premises must also be true. Now you say, I said, oh my fucking God. If the conclusion follows the premises, it's valid. Right. So if this would be a valid argument, we should punch gingers in the face. Zach Gelpy is a ginger. Therefore, conclusion, we should punch Zach Gelpy in the face. That's valid. If the premises are true, the conclusion follows. But it wouldn't be sound because we shouldn't punch gingers in the face, and Zach Gelpy's not a ginger. Therefore, it is not sound, even though it's valid. That's exactly what I'm saying, Pat Fricker. So he wants you to say, isn't this valid? If premise 1 is true and 2 is true and 3 is true and 4 is true, that justifies the conclusion. Therefore it's valid. See, Rob admits this is a valid argument. Yes, but it's not true because the premises are all fucked up. That's the point. Now, I didn't use the word it's valid but not sound. So an argument could be valid but not sound. An argument could be sound and not valid. All the premises could be true, but the premises don't justify the conclusion. Pisco wants you to focus on the validity. So as soon as you're like, but the premise isn't true, that's why premise 1 is as follows. Premise 1 is to get you to be like, see, he says, if there was injurious partisan Supreme Court packing and there's no effective way to reverse it without court packing and the proposed reciprocal packing doesn't overshoot beyond mild deterrence and there's no reason to expect the severe consequence cascade, then the injured party is justified in a reciprocal expansion of the Supreme Court. That's him outlining this would be valid. This is a valid form. That's what he's doing. Right? Then, once you agree it's valid, he's like, okay, now you've already accepted it. That's half the battle for me. See, this is a valid argument. Then when you start to go in and you're like, but the premises aren't true. Well, why not, Rob? Well, let's see. There was injurious Supreme Court packing. No, there wasn't. Merrick Garland wasn't Supreme Court packing. So what's he do? Well, it doesn't have to be Supreme Court packing. Let's call it Supreme Court schmacking. Doesn't matter. The premises will always be sound as well. So now you've conceded the form is valid. He'll say, well, all the premises are sound because anytime you prove they're not sound, I just say, but I define those terms differently than you. That's it. So it's sound. So let's go back to my syllogism. You say, okay, it's valid. We should punch all gingers, and Zach Gelpy's a ginger. Therefore, we should punch Zach Gelpy. That's valid, but it's not sound. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. First up, we shouldn't punch all gingers. And my preference, we should. Okay, but Zach's not a ginger. Yeah, when I say ginger, I just mean people with hair and beards. See? Now it's sound. Now it's valid and sound. Debate over. I win. We should pack the court. That's what he wants to do. That's right. Zach, $10 says, I'm feeling like you're going to have to keep you at arm's length at DebateCon. Right. Gavin Freenham, thanks for the $5. Says, what's up, Rob? Nothing. Pissy because my video got ruined today, but. Maybe I'm screwing up. I don't know. I don't know then. I don't know the difference between valid and sound then if you're correct back, Fricker. It sounded to me like you agreed. Valid. That if the premises are true, it justifies the conclusion. That's valid. Sound. Is the premise true? Am I wrong? I'm sorry I'm sounding frustrated, Pat Fricker, because it seemed that you said, no, you're wrong. Never mind, I got that backwards. You're right. Nope, you're wrong again. So I'm confused. And it seems like everyone else is saying I'm right. It's just you saying that somehow I'm wrong. And I don't know. I don't know. Hey, Bix Paradox, $10 is popping in for a sec to say, good to see you, good to see you. I really don't give a shit about the right. Valid is the structure, sound as if it's true. So the argument would be valid. Premises are not sound. Premises are true or not. If the premise is untrue, then it's not sound. Right. I don't think I said the premise was sound. Maybe I slipped up and said that. I would say the premise is not true, therefore it's not sound. I don't think that an argument okay. I guess my mistake was saying the premise is wrong, so it's not sound. I was intuiting that meant therefore the conclusion is not sound, not that the premise is not sound. But let me be very careful with my words because apparently this really matters. If I argue that one of the premises isn't true, then the entire argument becomes not sound, even if the structure of the argument would be valid. Is that enough to make everyone happy? You see what I mean? Why the Philbro shit? It's just like a non-valid argument would be this. Fish, premise one, fish have gills. Premise two, Rob's son likes tree houses. Therefore, conclusion, Rob should buy a Dodge. It's like, but they don't necessarily follow. That's not valid. All three of those things could be true. Fish do have gills. Rob's son does like tree houses. Rob should buy a Dodge. So that argument, the premises are all correct. Thomas is convinced. He's like, all right, I like it. Get a Dodge. So you're like, no, your argument's not valid, man. It doesn't make sense. It's the way I would put it without getting into point. Those are all non sequiturs. One has nothing to do with the other. Yeah. Yeah. That's the way. That's what I'm saying without using. Anyways, done with the fucking. The whole point is the sleight of hand is this. First, get a concession that the argument is valid because already 50% of the arguments are like, well, that means something. An argument being valid means jack shit. It just means that you were able to fucking follow a structure. It does not speak to, there's also, you could make valid arguments against anything in the world. You could make a valid argument that you should burn your house down. Be simple to do. It doesn't mean you should. It doesn't mean that the reasons that you're giving for it are true, but it can follow a valid structure. But most people don't realize that. And forget about the formal word valid. That doesn't matter. It's just like saying, could you come up with like a linear argument for why you ought burn your house down? I guess hypothetically I could. But the sleight of hand is, therefore there must be something to that, right? Well, no. Not if I could do that for any argument. That doesn't prove that there's something to it at all. Then it's like, and this is what I was saying. Again, I don't have I didn't have the formal terminology, but this is, if you go back and listening to my opening statement on that part of the debate, this is exactly what I said would happen. He has this really bad plan that's just, we want power. We want power and we're going to be authoritarian. We're going to pack the court. We're going to end the filibuster. We're going to give legislative control over the courts to be able to punish the courts. We're going to add 2 new states. We're going to vote blue no matter who, even if that means people with Nazi tattoos. We're going to look the other way on left-wing insurrections. We're going to vote to keep our opponents off of the ballots. They're going to do all of that at the same time. Right? And it's like anyone listening's like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. And he's like, but wait, I have a valid argument. Oh, okay. Well, valid argument. Amazing. Okay. And then when you're like, okay, well, let's check each of these premises. Because if any of the premises fall apart, then you lose. Yeah, he says. Okay. So then you're like, all right, well, first off, you say that what happened to Merrick Garland was court packing, right? Yeah. Okay, well, it wasn't. Well, I might as well call it court schmacking. Doesn't matter. The term court packing doesn't matter. But your premise says there was court packing. What I mean by that was there was something funky with the court. And I thought it was bad. It injured us. Okay. But why does that necessarily entail that what you're doing back proportionally? Well, if you get down to premise 4, it says we're not overshooting beyond mild deterrence. Well, I think that not only is this overshooting beyond mild deterrence, it's not deterrence, it's incentive. I also don't agree that if it doesn't overshoot beyond mild deterrence, that would be something that we should accept. Now, it's difficult in real time, particularly when someone's going to equivocation, meta. No. Answer yes or no. Answer blah, 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 blah. When this shit's happening the whole time, it's very difficult. That's why it takes 11 hours to get through this shit. But think of this. I don't know how to formally say this. But look at premise 4. The proposed reciprocal packing doesn't overshoot beyond mild deterrence. Let's say he was right. Let's say he's able to prove that it doesn't overshoot beyond mild deterrence. So, what if I say, well, I think we should reject it if it overshoots at all? What if instead of saying it doesn't overshoot beyond mild deterrence, Pisco wrote the premise to say, the proposed reciprocal packing doesn't overshoot beyond 500 seats being added? Technically true. We only want to add 100 seats. See, that doesn't overshoot beyond 500. Okay, but I still reject it. Why? Isn't it valid? Yeah. And isn't the premise sound? It's true. Or isn't the premise true? Yeah. Now what? I say even if the argument structure is valid and even the premises are true, I still disagree with the conclusion. I still disagree with the premises, even if they're true. What is the formal opposition to that? The premise is true, the conclusion's valid, and yet I still reject. I say no. Yeah, Raceland, we'll give you a couple minutes to call in about this. This is a huge fucking mistake. I shouldn't even be talking about this stuff. It's the most boring shit in the world. To even get into it, to entertain the idea itself is fucking nonsensical because it takes away from the forest of the trees. Yeah, it's bad. Or as I put it, let's say that someone says this to you. I want to steal your car. Wow, that's really bad. Okay, but let's just do a bunch of premises. Premise 1, I should be allowed to stand within 50 yards of your car. Right? Why not? Okay, I guess. Premise 2, I should be allowed to lean on your car. Nothing wrong with that, right? Premise 3, there are situations where I should be allowed to open the car door. I guess. Premise 4, if there are situations if I saw something within the car, it would justify me getting in the car. I suppose. Premise 5, there are times it would justify once I'm in the car, if I see something that's an emergency, it would be worthwhile for me to drive your car. Yeah, I guess. Therefore, conclusion. There are times you should let me in your car. Yeah, man, but you said you were going to steal my car. Is the form valid? Yeah. Are the premises true? Yeah. Then you should let me in your car. It would be unsound because the conclusion doesn't follow. So something could be unsound even if the premises are true. There you go. That's my argument. The premise isn't true, and even if they are true, I'd still reject. All right. All right, Rayson, what's up? Let's get the Phil Bro shit. What's happening?
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear
Good,
me?
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah. I hope everything's been good, man.
Yeah, it has been. I
Oop. I don't know if you're talking or if you're contemplating, but we don't hear you.
oh okay. I have to be on StreamYard to talk.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so I wanted to call in about this topic because I just feel like what Pisco was doing was just extremely dishonest and was using philosophy as as Ryan put it, the thin veneer of logic to
Correct.
shroud his radical views.
Mhm.
Um, like for example, his first premise relies on a normative justification that he doesn't even believe in, which is like this tit for tat thing.
Yes, that's to me one of the things. It took 11 hours to get to this, but by the end of the debate, because to me the fact that he uses, so if you look at the conclusion, he doesn't say should, he says justified. Now there's a reason. Let's start with this. Like, you tell me if you agree with what I'm about to say. Forget about formal logic. I'm just going to say something, and if you disagree, tell me. It seems like whoever crafted this syllogism, whether it be Pisco or someone else, carefully thought about the exact terms that they were using. Would you agree with that?
Yes, yes.
It certainly
Mhm.
seems the case to me, right? Especially, you could tell that someone with a formal, like, who's interested in more formal forms of logic, when you get this sort of like, I forget what you, that's not delta, P, I forget, but you see the form right here,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Okay. And then he's listing, right? So this is someone that, this wasn't someone like me that's throwing together a syllogism real quick, like, you know, Zach's got red hair, we should punch dudes with red hair, like that. This is someone who thought it through, like that they wrote this down. So then there's, when you start to think about that, there's a reason, for example, in the conclusion, it uses the word justified. And it's very similar to the reason that it uses the word Supreme Court packing. All of this is to give the thought to an audience that this has something to do with the concept of fairness. That one thing happened to one side and therefore a reciprocal thing of equality should happen on the other side. That's why he says court packing happened, therefore we should do court packing. We want it to be justified, right? The problem is, as you get to the debate later, he doesn't believe that. That's why he says, well, we don't have to call it court packing. And what I mean by justified is just that we should do it. So what he's doing is a sleight of hand. You use one term to make it look like from the onlooker, oh, he's saying like to like. Thing A happened here, so thing A should happen on the other side. Even the scales, right? Just, justice, justified. But that's not what he believes at all. Because he later goes on to say, my interpretation of the term justified just means something I think should happen. So, for example, if I think I should have your Lamborghini, I take it. Now, most people would say, but that's not justified. And I say, why not? Justifies just means I think I should do it. So, yes, it is justified. That's the problem. So the thin veneer of like, oh, logic and it's banal is like that it gives the impression, this is just, it's just an equal thing. It's an eye for an eye. It's tit for tat. People accept that. There is a concept that many people will have that's like, that seems about right. That seems fair. But in reality, he's like, I don't give a fuck about fairness at all. This has nothing to do with fairness. In fact, he's fully admitting it goes beyond fairness, which he's fine with because his side's good and it's just his preferences after all. That's the that's the getting you to argue this syllogism for hours and hours and hours loses scope of the general overarching point. And this is one of the problems I have with Philbro people, right? It's like this. I could make a debate with you impossible. Like I could do this, right? Raceland, I could be like, how you doing today? And you would
Good.
say,
Good.
what's good mean?
I feel good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't
I'm
know
gonna
how I could communicate to you if you use the word good to define good. You got to tell me what you mean by the principle of the word good.
I'm in an uplifting mood.
What's uplifting? And for that matter, what's a mood? You see the
Yeah.
problem? We could go for hours. Because the problem is, once you accept that words are just utterances that can mean whatever you want, well, how are you going to convey that meaning? With more words, which themselves are just utterances that can mean whatever you want. So if I wanted to, I could sit here for 8 hours and just keep going down the fucking rabbit hole until eventually you're going to get to a point where you're frustrated or it's circular, and I'll say, well, that you can't. That's circular logic. You can't define that word as itself. So now where are we? That's
So-
in effect what's happening here. It's different, but it's the same sort of principle. That we could set out these syllogisms, right? And then we could quibble about each term within, and we could adjust definitions, whatever. That at the end of the day, I'm just trying to make it seem like this followed some legitimate format that was valid, and therefore there's some justification for it. When in reality, at the end of the day, it's just all a thin veneer for I want power and fuck you. But I can
Yeah.
make it seem like that way by forcing you hours and hours and hours and hours to go down this rabbit hole.
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about is the language thing. So I don't know what theory of language that Pisco subscribes to, but there are like postmodernists out there who think that language ultimately doesn't point to anything. So it's all circular, pointing to different definitions, which point to other definitions, and so on. But I don't think that would make any communication possible. And further, I don't even know why you would be trying to communicate things to anyone. Like,
Well, that's if I debate one of these Phil bros on this, which I don't see myself doing because I find it to be worthless. But let's say they're able to explain to me, well, what Pisco was doing is valid, and here's why. What if I just say this? No, I don't think it was. And they're like, well, there are formal rules, there are formal structures. And I say, I disagree. I don't think there are. And they say, yeah, they are. And I'm like, no, I don't even believe the words you're saying mean what you think they are. To me, they don't. So if there's no truth and there's no objectivity in definitions of words, how the hell then could we say there's objectivity in valid forms of argument? I disagree. I say that your format's not valid. Well, how could you say that, Rob? There's formal rules for this. My interpretation of the word valid is your interpretation of the word not valid. Now what? Now what do we do? If I change the word valid to mean the opposite of valid, that's what valid means when I say it, then is Pisco's argument valid? I guess not, Rob. It would be invalid. Good, thank you. End of debate. You see the problem? All of the idea, like the entire idea of there are correct structural forms of argument all imply some sort of objective truth. And so to say that there is no objective truth and it's all preference, then an argument's merely sound and valid if you feel like it's sound and valid. You appealing to some sort of universal rule to what makes something sound or valid is in itself an appeal to an objective truth, which you claim doesn't exist. So why should I accept it? What you say it's valid. No, I disagree. Valid's just an utterance. It's a concept. All of it at the end of the day is just going to come down to our preferences. That's it. And so it's like when at one point I tried to make this argument where they're like, well, it's different. It's like the rules of chess. I was like, I disagree. I don't think there are rules of chess. Yeah, but when you play a game, you agree to the rules. No, I don't. I don't think that the bishop can only move diagonal. I say it can move forward too. Now what? Why is argument structure any different? Why do I have to agree to your interpretation of what makes a valid and sound argument? I reject it. Now what? Why am I wrong and you're right? Because people have collectively agreed that this is the way that makes sense. Oh, so there's something about universal agreement and things? Really? But not with the definition of terms. That's the way I look at it. And like, I had this come up once in a debate where this sort of argument came up, and I was the judge. And at the end of the round, you're supposed to just you fill out a ballot, and then you have to explain your decision. And I literally just was like, chicken wing, pen, thermos. And they were like, huh? And I was like, doorstep, running, blue hair, and just walked out of the room. And they were all pissed off, and I'm like, why? How is that any different than me saying, I think the affirmative won because I agree with their arguments? Both statements are just utterance of sounds by me with no meaning except to myself, right? There's no agreed upon meaning to the definitions of words. So what's the difference if I say purple unicorn versus the affirmative wins? Both of those mean the exact same thing. Nothing. Just an arrangement of sounds. And the mere fact that you're pissed off proves that you don't believe your bullshit. That there's no intersubjective or objective meaning to words. Now, Pisco keeps using the word intersubjective. But that implies that, like, and it's, again, I'm not a philosopher. I'm just thinking through this shit, right? To me, the implication is this. Because it's impossible for all of us to exactly agree with the definition of terms, right? They're subjective. But there has to be some cohesion and some general agreement. So me and you, if you asked each of us to come up with our own definition of the word chair, we're probably going to come up with a slightly different thing. And yet, despite that, if you showed us 10 pictures and 5 of them were chairs and 5 weren't, we'd probably match on all 10, right? But how's that possible if neither of us can agree on the exact definition of the term chair? Well, it's because there is a mutual understanding of, in general, what we're talking about. So when we take the word deterrence, yeah, Cambridge and Merriam-Webster might have slightly different definitions, but the general concept's the same. And we accept that. So when you hear someone say, oh man, that sign would be a deterrence to would-be criminals, we all understand. That would prevent them from trying to be criminals. But not Pisco. He says, I could just redefine it my own whim. And to even point to a collective definition like from a dictionary is, quote, equivocation. It's this sleight of hand trick. Words mean things collectively when I want them to, and then when it disadvantages me, they no longer mean things collectively. And I'll just subjectively go time to time, and all of it's just a shell game. I'm moving the shell, moving the shell, moving the shell, moving the shell, and each way that I'm moving the shell only applies in this unique situation right here. Only in this situation does the shell moving in this exact way, does it ever make sense? And wouldn't you know, at the end of the day, the shell happens to land exactly on what my position is. Doesn't that make sense? But why does it matter? You know what I mean? Now, I know as someone who's more interested in formal philosophy, you probably have a more accurate vocabulary method of explaining that. But that's my interpretation of this.
Yeah, you're right. So subjective just means that it's mind dependent. So like if all minds were to go away tomorrow, it would cease to be true.
Correct.
And then objective means that it's mind independent. So if all minds were to go away, it would still be true. And intersubjective, the way I understand that, and I haven't looked at this in a while, but it's like it's true of a shared mind.
That's what I intuited was the yes.
Yeah.
But the problem with intersubjective is, but how much? So if it's true between me and your shared mind, but no one else, is it intersubjective? And that's the problem with the term subjective as well. Like if subjective just means what anyone wants, then language is meaningless. Okay, then it's intersubjective. Okay, but what's the amount of people that need to agree on the general idea of a term before we accept that that's what we should look at in the concept of intersubjectivity? For example, did you ever hear about like twins or something will make up their own language? You know?
Yeah, I have. I've heard about that.
Is that intersubjective understanding of language then? Even though only 2 people in the entire world accept those particular words meaning those particular things? I don't know. There's some sort of threshold argument. But the problem is once you go down that road, you'll always be able to say, like for example, Pisco could theoretically say, well, I talked to, my brother who also thinks we should pack the court, and he agrees exactly on my terms, which means that it's intersubjective now. So on one hand, you have you, Rob, that has the dictionary that 99% of people agree. And on the other hand, we have my definition, which me and one other guy agree. Both are an intersubjective understanding of the vocabulary, though, right? Technically, I guess so. Okay, then what's the difference?
Yeah, and this was another thing like that Pisco did that was dishonest. If like the point of a syllogism is to communicate an idea that is valid and you find to be sound, but he's not actually trying to communicate because he's not using the standard definitions of these words.
Well, yes, I agree. For me, it's very similar. I find this like it's funny because a lot of the Philbro people are left leaning. Like Ryan Mullally was saying this. He's like the anti-realist. If there is no truth and nothing means anything, what are the chances that they're all left wing? Wouldn't it be 50-50 at best? Like, it's just a random scatter shot, right? But no, they all come from the same, and it's because I think it has to do with the idea of power. And so if I'm thinking about like objective truth like Christianity, or I'm thinking about conservative values. A lot of what I was trying to think this through in my head the other day. Forget about Christianity for a minute, right? I think it's the truth, so I think that's the reason for this. But just to try to make the argument outside the scope of religion, I think there's a bunch of stuff that we intuitively know that we can't explain why, right? We should protect children. Why? Well, they're innocent. Why does it matter to protect the innocent? Well, they did no wrong. Okay, but why are we more interested in protecting people that did no wrong? All people have done wrong at some point. You're saying a child's never done anything wrong? Well, yeah, but they can't defend themselves and they've done less wrong. Oh, so less wrong. They've done less wrong. So when is the exact threshold for where it's wrongness for we should protect someone? And what do you mean just because they can't defend someone? So it's equally relevant to defend, like, saying a man, a 23-year-old man that's incapable of martially defending himself against that bodybuilder over there or against that karate expert as it is the child? Do I have an equal moral obligation to defend both? And all of a sudden, it's like you could go through all this shit, but we all know, protect the fucking children. We all know, right? We know it. It's just when you ask me, well, put it into exact words, and I'm going to interrogate every word, it becomes very difficult. And I think the postmodernists found this gap, right? Where it's like, well, logically, you should be able to put every little thing you believe into words, right? And make it coherently make sense, I suppose. Okay, but you can't. Because it actually turns out that language and thought and everything is clunky. And so if we reduce it down to the bare minimum, we're going to be able to get you to a point where you say, I just don't know. I guess, aha! And there's the gap in truth. And therefore, that means that you don't really know, which therefore means that we can't say said thing is good or bad. So maybe we shouldn't protect children because after I interrogated you for 4 hours, you started to get circular. So you don't have a reason that we should protect children, I suppose. Then everything's just subjective, right? I mean, I guess to a degree. Right, which means I should have power. You see how that works? And in reality, the whole game, to even play the game, is it's okay to just be like, go fuck yourself. You're wrong because you're wrong. Ha, but that doesn't make sense scientifically, Rob. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. How about that? I'm able to articulate within some encompassing set of threshold that it's difficult for me to exactly articulate, that there is a collective understanding of many of these concepts and whether or not we should do them or not, with the full acknowledgement that if we brought it down to the bare minimum, it would be near impossible to explain why, and yet we still all understand it in our collective human consciousness. Don't harm the child. We know that. We know that that ought be right. And so therefore it is right. And yes, it's true that you could say, but what about slavery and shit like that? Fine. We could talk about the individual examples. My system's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative, which is to reject everything as not being true if you can't articulate at the base level of vocabulary why it is the case. Because almost none of us, and it's probably impossible, but even if it was possible, almost no one would be able to do that. Define the word the. It becomes very difficult. And so what happens is to even play this game is just playing an excuse for, I'm just going to drag you down to a more infinitesimally reductive view of things over and over and over until you throw up your hands. And the moment you throw up your hands, you say, aha, that means all truth's subjective. That's postmodernism in a nutshell, and that's the Phil Bros shit in a nutshell, in my opinion. That's what the game is about. Now, you might say, but that's not how most Phil Bros are playing the game. Maybe true, but the way I've seen it utilized, like this, that's all it is. It's just an excuse for truth doesn't exist. I want power.
Yeah,
You know?
I think that can be said for people who buy into subjectivity like full sale. But if you can agree upon, and even if you do, if you can agree upon some things, I think there's room for conversation, even with those people. But I do want to say, like, that is what you're talking about is what Andrew Wilson has kind of exposed, right? Like when these people are talking and they're talking about rights, it comes down to their preferences, and he's like, well, it's my preference that you don't have those, and so the it ultimately is going to come down to who has more force in your worldview. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why at least an appeal to an objective truth, like God, even if you subjectively misinterpret it, seems to be on more solid ground than just a belief that everything's completely subjective. Because once you say that, then everything's just preferences and force. Like in this debate I had with Bisco, force takes on a different idea of concept, which isn't the idea of individual force, but it's the force of the majority. Right? All that matters at the end of the day, if Pisco says pack the court, my preferences, and I say don't pack the court, my preferences, it comes down to trying to get someone to utilize force to engage in that position at some point. And the way that we as actors are trying to effect that force going in our direction is to convince enough people that will then be able to shape the people that utilize the force. In this case, utilizing the force being official government action that's backed by all of this force, the military, the police, all of this shit. So we're both just making an appeal to the audience. Here's why I think I'm right. Here's why I think you're right. All of us have subjective morality. There's no right or wrong. There's no concept of fair. If there's no right or wrong, there's no justice. If there's no justice or right or wrong, there's no concept of fairness. None of that matters. I'm literally just, we might as well each have a singing contest, and then you say that guy sang better, therefore we'll go with his position. That's literally it. After all, the words are meaningless. It's just utterances that are designed to be more appealing to the majority of people so that they'll get on my side, which is just give me power. That's it. So the reason it's so and you can reduce everything to that. You can say, but Rob, even if you don't acknowledge that, in fact, isn't that what you're doing? Maybe it is. But it's like, sort of, for me, it's like the constant reductive. It's depressing and it doesn't have utility. We can have a huge debate on whether or not the concept of free will exists, right? Does free will exist? Or am I basically a machine that was created by God or created by some sort of biological function that was designed to output exactly who I am genetically? And then when you factor in all of the experiences and culture and my parents and everyone I ever met, put that into a function with my exact genetic makeup, it all led me exactly to the point where I'm at today, 41-year-old man. And so now I'm thirsty, and so I'm going to reach, I'm going to grab my water, I'm going to take a drink. Now, was that an act of free will? Or was that always the inevitable consequence of every moment of my life mixed in with who I am genetically? And the answer is, I don't care. I was thirsty and got a drink. I'm going to continue to live my life under the assumption I have free will. And if I don't, nothing changes. But if I give in to the fact that I don't, then all of a sudden, I'm no longer responsible for any of my actions, which means that it's now a self-fulfilling prophecy that my life will end up poorer because as someone who no longer feels responsible, I give in to despair and I give in to nihilism. So I continue to act as if I have free will. And deliberating for hours upon hours upon hours as to whether or not that's true is irrelevant to me. Because at the end of the day, I must act as if I do. Period. The same is true of all of this shit. It's like, yeah, I could infinitely reduce everything that we're ever talking about. I'm at least of mild intelligence that I would be capable of trying to trip someone up playing these games. But I guess I'm just cutting to the end and trying to appeal to things that I think are more fair and just. And you might say, but those are tainted by your subjective interpretations of the world. Okay. I don't care. And I think when it comes to practical, cultural, and political solutions, that my situation will end up better. I don't think if I'm in a room of potential voters and I start to go through these syllogisms and shit that they're going to be like very persuasive. And I'm like, actually, what you thought deterrence meant doesn't mean anything. And actually, what you think justice means doesn't mean anything. And actually, it's just all preferences and blah, blah, blah. I think the average voter is going to be like, yeah, it's not for me, dog. Whereas if I'm saying, like, here's why this would be fair for this to happen, I think they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a better argument. So for me, that's where I view this Philbro stuff. It makes sense with a bunch of like people in the bubble. I'm not even saying bubble is bad. The people that are interested in this stuff, it becomes interesting. But the vast majority of people aren't. Just like I could say, I demand that the debates occur by the rules of NDTC to policy debate. I'd dominate all these motherfuckers. I'd be in here speed reading, and I'd be like, oh, you know, you're not allowed to introduce evidence at this point in the debate, and blah, blah, blah. But would it really matter if my goal is to persuade people that I'm correct? They'd be like, Rob's just fucking, he knows the rules of this game and the other side doesn't. So he's winning, but that don't mean shit. Right? That's how I look at it. So if you're conceding at the end of the day that this is just all subjectivity and power, okay, man, is your argument persuasive then? Maybe it is to the Philbros. What percent of the population's that? So I guess I don't give a shit. I'm appealing to the people that don't look at the world through this lens and try to reduce everything like this, is my opinion.
Well, I think it can be useful because, like you said, most people it's completely unintuitive to them, the position you're describing, and it could be useful because a lot of times when you're debating people, you'll find that their positions, especially on the left, their positions are undergirded by that unintuitive position, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. I do. And look, it's always like, it is. If you don't have an understanding of this, do you ever get to like the idea of force doctrine and shit? Probably not. You have to have some sort of mild understanding. My belief is this, though. It's like some magic voodoo. And as soon as you start to dip your toes in it, you have more incentive to keep going back to the well. I choose not to. It's okay. There are people like Andrew and Jay Dyer that are using that magic voodoo for good. I'll let them keep doing it. I'm going to keep pushing for practical normative politics and cultural change. That's how I look at it. And so I know enough of this to explain why it's fucking ridiculous that you're screaming that I'm trying to use a dictionary definition as opposed to your proprietary one, and how the things you're pushing over are. That's why, by the way, he keeps yelling at me, you're talking about the meta. Well, what else is there? If you're agreeing it's all preferences and that this is all designed to get people on your side, then isn't the meta all there is? This is why
exactly
you're doing
why
it.
Ryan was completely, like, he ended up at the end of your debate completely justified.
Correct.
And I was initially against Ryan when he did that, and I had talked to him about it. But yeah, now, I mean, after watching your debate, it makes complete sense why he did what he did. Like,
if your argument is, I think we should pack the court because of my preferences, your opponent should be able to say, here is your rationale for my preferences. Here's what you really want. Here's what your preferences really are. Why isn't that germane to the conversation? Your preferences are to pack the court and end the filibuster and add 2 new states and ignore insurrections that are going on and keep your opponent's ballot or off the ballot. That's all relevant to the conversation when your justification is because this is how I feel. Okay, here's the other things you feel. What does that look like as a collective for the rest of us? That is the debate.
And also, it doesn't matter, you know, in typical, like when you're typically debating something, you want to get to some kind of truth. You're arguing about what is the truth. But if there is no truth, it's just rhetoric. And so if you just skip the part about trying to say what the truth is and just try to convince people that the opponent is wrong, I mean, it's effective.
Why is it not an equally valid argument to be like, my opponent's an ugly motherfucker? Yeah, he is. Fuck that guy. Why not? Why isn't that an equally acceptable argument? Under what theory? If it's all my preferences, right? Whatever I got to do to win, right? It doesn't matter. Hey, I'll pay y'all $10 to say I won. Great. That's effective, right? Why not? You have a room full of 100 people and you're trying to convince, you have a debate. And one guy outlines the best plan you've ever heard why the Democrats should pack the court, right? And we both mutually agreed that however these 100 people vote, that's what we'll ultimately say was the right argument. 5 hours outlines his case while I say nothing. And at the end, I say, hey, I'll give you all $10 if you vote for me. Who did more effective? Probably me. People be like, fuck yeah, I'll vote for Rob. What's it matter? Everything's subjective. It's just power. It's just getting people on your side. What's the difference? Oh, thank you to whoever rated.
And
I appreciate it.
I was just gonna say, and there are people on the left, like I think Vosh has just admitted this. Like when he's debating, he's just trying to convince people. Like he doesn't care what the truth is. He doesn't believe there's truth. He's just trying to convince people to come
Well, I
over
think
to his
Destiny said that, hasn't he? Hasn't he also said that
I
he'll
don't
lie
really
if
watch that
necessary
much
to win?
Destiny.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, I mean it's very much like I don't know. So, for me it's frustrating because I feel like you could always get more reductive. The idea of the formal debate or logic structure and stuff like that, I understand the utility of it. I do. And I think it does make sense, but I don't think that's how most people operate. Like, for example, for formal structure, my guess is, now I'm not, but if I look at this, all these mean something. P means something, R means something, O means something, C means something, right? And then
Yeah.
there's, now my guess is, here's what happens. I come up with the syllogism in this debate where I'm like, okay, first premise would be we ought to deter court packing. Yeah. Second premise, Republicans packing the court would deter court packing. Yeah. Therefore, conclusion, Republicans should pack the court. And Avi was like, well, in order for it to be a formal, valid argument. Now, my guess is a lot of these things, like let's say R or O or things like that, are going to be things outside the scope of those two things that are implicitly accepted by most people. Like, you would have to include in your syllogism, will there be external negative consequences? That's my guess. I don't know. I've never, right? So it's like, but we all just assume that. Like, for example, we can think of everything in the context of a syllogism, but then say, Raceland, this is occurring. Me and you are hanging out, and I say, hey, man, do you like pizza? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, you hungry? And you're like, yeah. It's like, let's head over to the pizza shop. Now, you can put that in the form of a syllogism that would probably have like 5 premises, right?
Yeah.
But we all know what we're saying. Well, you have to include that part of that would be that you have the money to do it and that there wouldn't be external negative consequences to going to the pizza. But that's all just implicitly accepted, right? When two average people are talking, yeah, that might be what your brain's doing, that it's running through a bunch of shit implicitly. And so what happens is, as you formalize everything, it sort of slows down the discussion. Instead of just two guys having a discussion like, hey man, do you think they should nominate Pete Buttigieg? It becomes this, well, let's do this syllogism and think of everything we could think of on the pro side, the con side, blah, 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 blah. And it ends up making a 20-minute conversation that you could have with a normal person into a 10-hour conversation where you basically say the exact same fucking thing because you had to do this formal,
So yeah. So actually, I think this is maybe a little bit of a misconception or something. In philosophy, like these formalized structures in most professional philosophy papers are almost used as like outlines, because the reality is there's going to be a page about each premise or more, and it's not necessarily like they're just using the formal structure. Like making the formal argument is pretty elementary. It's very easy to do. It's arguing about the soundness that is the more difficult thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it just becomes frustrating. And I think that, like, it doesn't matter how well I could get you or anyone else to come on and talk about the importance of this and that Pisco is misusing it or this, that, and the other. And maybe this is bad formal argument structure. But my answer to all of this is just say, okay, go watch that 11-hour debate. How's that? And you're going to be like, after like 20 minutes, you're going to be like, this fucking sucks. What
I
the
watched
fuck
it.
is happening? Well, yeah, but I mean to an average person. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, what? What do you mean deterrence can mean whatever you want? What do you mean court packing? Wait, what? Right? And that's what the average thing's going to be. And it's like, at the end of the day, I think that if I'm trying to appeal to the average person, then I'm further ahead to appeal in the average parlance is to trying to get to a more professional. You're only as smart as your ability to impart your knowledge to other people. And if you are talking in a way that you think makes you very smart and puts you in a very formal structure that the average person is completely frustrated and confused about what you're saying, I don't know how well you're doing. And I think that I tried to illustrate that in this debate, despite Avi as an authority figure trying to be there to be like, no, actually what Pisco's doing is okay. I think that it had the exact opposite effect. And my guess is if you force someone like Clockwork Orange style to watch that fucking debate, if you force 10,000 people to watch that, I would be shocked if even 10% of them would have thought Pisco did well. I think they'd be like, what the fuck is this? That's my feeling. And I see other people do this in places where I think that there are people that do this well, like Andrew Wilson. And then I think there are people that are trying to do Andrew Wilson impressions. And it's like, no, you're not doing well. It just, I don't know. That's my opinion on it. He did stutter a lot. He definitely did. So
He did.
Well, Rayson, I'm gonna head out of here soon. I'll give you the final word if you want, but
yeah, I just think that the main thing that I kind of wanted to get to you is that I think it's important to realize when people are taking on the sort of philosophy that Pisco was in this debate, where this anti-realist philosophy, and pointed out because it is a completely unintuitive position, and I think that most people, once they realize that, will be unconvinced.
Yeah, I mean, it's really one of the arguments that I hear against Andrew all the time is like where he'll ask like where people get their morality or their ethics, and I feel like we could have saved 10 hours of this debate if I just did that. And he was just like, my preferences. And I'm like, how do you define injurious partisan pre-court packing? My preferences. And when you say there's no effective way to reverse it without court packing, what do you mean? My preferences. And when you say proposed reciprocal doesn't overshoot beyond my preferences. Okay, good debate, right? Like, I think it would have, to employ that strategy, maybe if there's a criticism of me, it's that I should have started with that. Just like, well, where do you get your ethics? You know, I'm an anti-realist. Everything's just my preferences. If I ever debate Pisco again, that's exactly what I'll say. There is no concept of a truth or a lie. It's just all your preference. That's it. All words are utterances. None of them matter. The mere fact that, I disagree. That's all I need to say to beat you in this argument. You agree, I disagree. Neither of us are more right than the other. End of debate. So. All right, Reason. Well, I appreciate you calling on, trying to help me with this. Anyway, some super chats. I'm gonna get out of here. Zach Gelpy, $5 says no one should buy a Dodge. You know who drove a Dodge? Al Bundy. That's who. Vita, $2 says, what the heck did I start? Yeah, I know, man. Pix Paradox, $5 says, wish I knew what the fuck we're talking about, but it smells like non sequitur. Is that NSEC? I don't know, man. The philosophy stuff. Bat Frigger, $10 says, all you need to know is that Pisco's a sophist. He attempted to complicate his position to confuse people rhetorically, not to reach a fair and honest conclusion. I agree with that. Old Joe, $10 says, Pisco and his accolades come from the fundamental position of bad faith and dishonesty. That's why they're so frustrating to converse with. Marcus, $20 says, I respect the cut of your jib, sir. Thank you. That's a great compliment. Thank you. Yeah, this has a lot to do with, like, I guess some of my frustration is like old PTSD from debating this shit in college. Not quite this shit, but the postmodernist. No truth matters, blah blah blah. There's no truth, and you just sit there like, why the fuck are we talking? You don't believe that. You claim to believe that, but you don't. Because if the judge was just like, yeah, fuck you, no, I voted against you because I feel like it, you'd raise a fit. But if you really believe everything's just totally subjective, you'd say, fair enough, you have the subjective right to do whatever the fuck you want, just like I do. 559 Texan, $10. Sorry your stream crashed, buddy. Those Fuentes lovers are really annoying. Surprised they didn't blame the Jews for the crash. They may have. I don't know. Thanks, man. Jefferson Seatboats, $5 says, it's worth discussing the fundamental structure because incrementalism is an insidious means to steal or pervert. The devil asks only one wrong step. Exactly. That's sort of my point. And that's what they're trying to do, right? Imagine that you say, well, I'm a Christian, and I think as a Christian, I should attend church every Sunday. Why? Let's go step by step why. What if I can find one exception where that's not always the case? Then it puts doubt. One wrong step. That's what I'm saying. It's not always necessary to be like, well, I have to be able to formalize this in some sort of syllogism and go step by step through. Because God told me. That's why. Jefferson, again, $5 says, perhaps a phrase like, I mean word in the common usage. How the audience would understand it. So I mean deterrence in the common usage. How the audience would understand. Then they're fighting the viewer's understanding. Yeah? Old Joe, $10 says, Rob's correct here. Leftists and postmodernists don't want to be held to any standard. They just want power. Electric cars were fabulous until Musk built them. Then the same people torch them. Correct. Again, I said this before. It's why Pisco has these videos up about me admitting I'm a hypocrite. Pisco in this very debate went off on me because he's like, don't you think targeting Comey is political? And I'm like, sure, there's political ramifications. Aha! Okay, do you think the targeting of Trump was political? No. And so he thinks if he just lies, that makes him more admirable. I refuse to admit the obvious. Therefore, aha! If you, Rob, admit the obvious, and it's our greatest weakness and greatest strength, we'll tell the truth. Because we see inherent value in being honest people. They don't give a fuck. They'll lie right to your face. They'll even convince themselves to believe the lie. Can anyone reasonably say that politics didn't play a significant role in all of the cases against Donald Trump, or near all of them? Anyone? Well, Pisco says it like that. Of course it didn't play a role. Are you kidding? That Fricker, $10 says, of course we have free will. What choice do we have? Good. Jefferson, 5. Thanks, man. Says, the leftists use Philbro tactics, want it both ways. The premise is sold on the common meaning, but the defended usage is modern relativism. That's the sleight of hand. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why you use a word like court packing. I said this at the beginning of the debate. Before I ever got to say a word, Pisco stands up, gives his opening statement, and goes, when it comes to premise 2, forget about the word court packing. Let's just call it court schmacking. And this is what Ask Yourself wanted to reach out to me and talk about. My contention is, if the word's irrelevant, then why use the word court packing in the first place? Why not just say something like this? There was injurious partisan monkeying around with the court. Why not use that term? Well, the reason that you used the term court packing was you were hoping that the common understanding of the word court packing would make it come to mind that, if the Democrats want to pack the court and the Republicans already packed the court, then it's not a bad thing. That's why you use the word like for like. But when you realize, okay, if I prove that's incorrect, that the Democrats didn't pack the court, then we reject the conclusion, right? And he says, well, it's not actually court packing that matters. Court packing might as well mean court schmacking. Who cares? Because they want to have it both ways. People's common understanding of the term, if they accept the syllogisms, like, sure, that conclusion makes sense. And if you prove that I'm not using the common understanding, I say, well, that's okay too. And then Jefferson for $2 says, should redefining words be called lying instead? Yeah. Anyways, my biggest regret for the whole debate is that it was 11 hours. Because I think there were so many times that just made Pisco look so fucking bad that it gets lost in the shuffle. It's like, we haven't played in a while. Our good friend, Brian Shaprio.
He harasses women in messages, has a weird infatuation with men's organs. He's a syndicated radio host, and it's all about respect. He's Brian Shaprio.
You see, Brian's so shit at debate, so consistently, that you just got used to it. Right? Shit, It's like did you know they're rioting in Newark again? They rioted yesterday. They'll be doing it again today. At some point, you just accept it. You're like, well, that's just what they do. If one side riots only once every 10 years when it happens, you're like, oh my goodness, that's horrible. But when they do it every day, you're like, whatever. Same action. But you're like, we've just come to accept it. That's what it is. We just accept now, right? That's what happens in that debate. It's 11 hours of Pisco just getting smacked over and over and over again. That it loses the impact because he got crushed for 11 hours. If it's a 20-minute debate and he gets crushed, it's like, oh, fuck. But it's 11 hours. So it's like he gets crushed, and then 20 minutes later he gets crushed again, and then winds around, then he gets crushed again, and then 20 minutes later crushed again, and 20 minutes later crushed again. And so it ends up being like 15 points in that debate where you're like, holy fuck, what is happening? But it happens so many times within the debate that people are just left frustrated, like, I don't know. I'm not going to watch an 11-hour debate. And Pisco probably clipped something together that's like 15 minutes that he thinks made him look good. He's going to be hard-pressed. He'll clip together, Rob wants reciprocation on lawfare, and he thinks that Trump could go after more people. That's what it'll be. By the way, he still doesn't have the debate up. Just saying. And I haven't heard him talk much about it. Boy, he was talking a lot about the Ryan Mullally debate after it, right? Haven't heard him say much about his debate with me. Wonder why. Now, in his defense, I think he was on vacation. But we'll see what happens, right? We'll see. There is no way that dude thinks that made him look good. None. He fucking knows. So, all right, I'm in now. I've been streaming 4 hours because 2 hours fucking shit the bed. Tomorrow night, I'm speaking now. Amazing segment. Forget about all this shit. 2 white guys. Is Pisco white? Pisco's white, right? I can say Pisco, if you're not white, I'm not saying that to insult you. I would qualify Pisco as white, I think. Who gives a fuck about 2 white guys arguing for a syllogism for an hour? Tomorrow night, we get to the real shit. Why did I use FISA warrant for my syllogism against unprecedented law usage against Trump? 2 reasons. One, because unprecedented law usage is more subjective, and we have an objective metric for FISA warrants, which is they were ruled illegal, which Pisco's acknowledged. So I already have a concession for Pisco that there's an outside metric that shows what happened with FISA warrants. If I said unprecedented law usage against Trump, Pisco would say, I reject the premise. It wasn't unprecedented law usage. It was legitimate. And we've gone after other politicians before. The other reason was I wanted to take something that I don't truly believe in order for Pisco to say, actually, you should believe that. So I don't believe, because Democrats broke the law to get FISA warrants against Trump, that he should break the law to get FISA warrants against them. I don't believe that. But according to Pisco's logic, I should. Whereas if I just said something like, political investigations into Trump, therefore political investigations into Democrats, I sort of do believe that. So I didn't want to give him the opportunity to say, but you do believe that. So therefore we should believe my... That's right. I knew exactly what he would do. So look, if you haven't watched the debate and you don't want to watch the whole thing, there's an hour and 11-minute video up on my channel that gives you, anyone who watched the full debate, I think would say, this isn't me selectively just putting out the one part I look good. This is indicative of the whole fucking debate. So you could watch and you could see the just crazy, just fucking mush mouth, stuttering over words, redefining, just appealing to the moderator. It's all in there. It's all in that an hour and 11 minutes. It's all there. Interruptions. You'll see. So, all right. I am out. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, apologize for the weirdness of the stream. I will see you all tomorrow night. As always, have a good one.